Welcome to this episode of the Customer-Centric Retailing Podcast, a forum for retail leaders to discuss industry trends, challenges, and opportunities.
This is Anil.
And this is Fabi, and each episode we invite some of the brightest minds in the industry to discuss the future of customer centricity, with topics ranging from the rise of e-commerce to brick-and-mortar operations, to omnichannel technology to retail culture, and how all of these elements come together to create customer-centric retailing. Today we have with us Melissa Gonzalez, CEO and founder of Lionesque Group and author of The Pop-Up Paradigm, Building Human Connections in a Digital Age. Some of her clients include Amazon, Marc Jacobs, Nordstrom, and The RealReal. Welcome to the podcast. Such a pleasure having you on.
Thank you. Thanks so much for having me.
Absolutely. We're excited to have you and we're excited to get started. We have so much ground to cover with you today, but I thought we'd get started with a little bit of background. So if you can tell the audience a little bit about yourself, Melissa.
Sure. So I am the founder of the Lionesque Group, and I'm also a principal and shareholder in MG2, which is a global architecture firm that we merged with the beginning of 2020.
This is interesting. In fact, Melissa, I've been reading a lot about the links that the content you've been posting on LinkedIn and all that. And I clearly see you as a, very modern, very thought leader in terms of how the store should be designed and how those stores should be cubed with the technologies and all that, right? So I wanted to start this conversation with getting your views on the technologies that, how technologies are enabling the modern store experiences and what you think more and more retailers can do to deliver the experience customers have come to expect today, particularly in the post-COVID time.
Sure, yeah. So I think there's a lot of opportunities right now with all the changing behaviors you've seen with consumers, truly accelerated because of COVID. So one top of mind would be contactless payments and the adoption of that, and what that means for the store, what the checkout experience now means, and how that could be reimagined. Flexible fulfillment for sure is also top of the list, and you're seeing more and more fluidity around that. So everything from buy online, pickup in store, and curbside, and so there's a lot of conversation of what does that mean for how the store will need to dual purpose from a point of fulfillment to a point of discovery. And so, there's a lot of possibilities around that. One of the most recent articles I shared, I think was one that I wrote. It was how to make click and collect a moment to connect with your customer. There's a lot of kind of quick fixes and band-aids, so to speak, in 2020, right? We just had to meet the customer where they needed to be met. It didn't have to be perfect. But now as we're learning more and more about what consumers want out of those experiences, what are the friction points, what are the points of gratification, now we can take a deeper look on how to really design to make those moments of gratification that would otherwise just be transactional. And technology is a big component of that too, because in order to make that fluid, there's so much around the logistics that have to be in play, right? And so much supply demand forecasting, communications have to be seamless, being able to get those notifications to customers. So there's a lot around that. But also as we're seeing consumers be more and more adept to using their mobile device when it comes to commerce, then there's an opportunity of how do we live in a BYOD world, a bring your own device world, and how do we make sure that we create these environments that still have purpose, right? There still has to be a purpose to why somebody has to physically go to those stores, but now we have that dual opportunity of interacting with them within their device online and also in a very tangible way in store. So imagining how that coexists, I think is a big part of the conversation now as well.
You know what? I'm not going to let go this opportunity because I've been talking to many experts in the industry, but there's something very special about you. You're talking about most of these latest and greatest things. For example, you said that the store associates are going to bring in their own devices in the store, which is essentially their mobile devices, and the retailers have to come up with the policies on how the associates can use those technologies when they are at the workplace, and how, in fact, retailers should take advantage of that. So having mobile apps that can be installed on the associates, their own personal devices, which complements, which helps the customers in their buying experience. So essentially what I see happening is the e-com, which used to be like a separate channel, now it has to be actually combined with the in-store experience. So the mobile devices that we right now, actually, it's kind of what we are saying is like, tethered into our body. So we are actually always using that our phone to connect with the rest of the world. So like you mentioned in your article, customer is not going to simply walk into the store. They are going to check first if what they want is available in the store or not. At the same time, they'll place the order and maybe come in to pick up the order. So at this point, it's a great opportunity for associates to engage with the customers. But the engagement doesn't mean that it's only physical and verbal level. It starts with the mobile device, because when customer is coming in, the associates would know that, hey, this customer is coming in to visit the store to pick up the order. So let me make sure that order is prepared and ready. So when the customer comes in, I can greet the customer and make them feel special. And not only I can deliver them their order, but because I already know what they bought, and also I have access to their profile, I can give them a much more personal experience and help them in buying other accessories. Essentially, what businesses want is grow the basket size, right? So yeah, help me, let's talk further more about like how BOPIS and in-store cross-selling and upselling can help in increasing revenues for the retailer, something that will motivate them to, like what you said, is it's time to revisit those implementations which we had to band-aid in 2020, and come back and invest in those solutions to come up with much more modern, much more fluid, frictionless experiences for both store associates and the customers.
hmm Yeah, I mean, on the store associate side, I think that it takes the possibilities of clienteling to a deeper level, right? Because they have access to that information at their fingertips. What I've browsed, what I've bought in the past, what I'm coming to pick up, product recommendations. I think what's important, and we still are just scratching the surface in our own research around it, is not every environment's going to be created equal, and not every customer will be. There's behaviors that we've seen with a female shopper in those moments of pickup versus a male shopper, and so some of it too is understanding those different those different shopping habits. So, per our research insights, we've seen that men in our latest survey was 65% of men, when they're going to pick up an order that they've done through BOPIS, they're more likely to pick up other products while they're making that trip. So then you want to think about, okay, well, what's the opportunity then? If you're thinking of store design, what are the right adjacencies to where they're going to that point of pickup? How do you make it seamless for them to make those additional purposes? And how do you merchandise it in a purposeful way so it makes sense based on the things that are getting picked up? Here are other items that you might also find beneficial to you. On the flip side, what a woman has stated in our research that she wants out of the experience is actually the opposite. If she's creating that transactional moment, she's looking for efficiency, but she's also looking for a holistic experience in that if she wants to seamlessly return, she can also do that at the same time. And the opportunity for that, for example, is you're getting that product back on the floor faster so you can resell it, but you're also getting money in her pocket faster. So if you're making that seamless, then she's probably more likely to spend it with you again. So there are definitely nuances to consider around that. But I think the opportunity is also, we're probably in the early staging around geofencing, because I think that has to be really purposeful notifications, because people don't want to feel like noise is just coming at them. But to your point, there are ways to send a message, your order's ready, and then be notified when I've hit that geofenced area so that you know that I'm out on location. And maybe there is a strategic way to then deliver notifications to me. Welcome. I know you're picking this up. These other items are now in stock. right? Very purposeful messaging back to the consumer. As long as there is a value add to that communication, then the consumer is going to be more open to accepting that dialogue. And even if I haven't made the purchase in that moment, I've appreciated that you've provided me something personalized that's going to best serve me. And I'm probably going to think of you when I need those products, if not in that moment, but in the near future.
Yeah, I think that's interesting, and I think obviously you work with a number of different clients that are actually implementing all of these initiatives. And something that we talk about on this podcast a lot is how do you actually make a change in this industry, and how do you convince retailers that all of these different elements of the click and collect or omni-channel experience are actually necessary to create a seamless experience. You can't just offer BOPIS and then have people come in store and not have the order ready for them. And so I'm curious, what advice do you have for retailers that are considering adopting new technologies or new initiatives, especially if they're resistant to change? What do those conversations sound like? And what do the conversations sound like with retailers that maybe aren't sure if BOPIS or omnichannel is the way to go, and maybe they're a little bit resistant there as well?
Yeah, I mean, I think, when we're trying to have the conversations, we definitely try to provide as much data insights as we can. I think that the promising side now is there's a more openness to doing a pilot, and I've seen clients dive into those pilots with feeling a little bit more open-minded. It's okay if it's not fully figured out. We don't need to do it in 30 locations to try it. Let's try it in five. So I think that they're a little bit more adaptable and agile in that way, which is encouraging. And I think on the other side of the ecosystem, a lot of the technology companies have created more openness to, maybe um, being more collaborative to get that pilot off the ground. The other thing is, I think a lot of the fear is thinking holistically. So in isolation, the idea sounds good, but I think it's having the conversation of how you help them think through the logistics side, the operational side of it, because those are the bigger challenges to bring it to fruition. I think the good part is we can check the box now, which was an area which we couldn't do as in the same way 2 years ago. Consumers will do this, right? We can check the box because a lot of the times that's one of the things that holds companies back. Well, I don't know if a consumer is going to do that. But if it's now become their new behavior, we know that. And so it's no longer a question of, you know, will they do it? It's now we need to be able to deliver it because it's what a customer expects. So it changes now the focus to bring this to fruition. It's not just designating like where in the store does this need to go. It's the whole back of house situation, the whole logistical planning around it. It's understanding the expectations. If somebody orders something, they want it the same day. Sometimes they want it within the same 2 hours, right? So thinking through all of those use cases and then being able to position yourself behind the scenes from a logistics standpoint, how we're going to deliver upon that, I think has become a big shift of the conversation.
So, Melissa, when particularly when we are doing buy online pickup in store, one of the challenges that we see retailers have is the accuracy of inventory information from the stores. So that is like, the one of the challenges. And how do you see retailers are addressing to that problem? Like, what are they doing? What are the steps they're doing? Also, once they have accepted the order and if they see that they cannot fulfill that BOPIS order, what is the best way to respond to the customer so you're not disappointing? And because if you fail to fulfill the order very quickly, your whole program will fail and you will generally say, well, it doesn't work.
Right. Yeah. I mean, we've talked about RFID forever, and that that's definitely seen slower adoption in the industry than anyone would like. But that's definitely a way. Brands that have that fully implemented, I think, are at a strategic advantage when it comes to supply chain management because it's highly accurate. And tracking where those packages are. You're seeing a lot more do camera vision too, and I think what's promising is the way the ecosystems come together, where a lot of the companies that that are focused on camera vision, they're creating these software platforms and really focusing on that and creating systems where they can tap into existing cameras. And so you're not needing as much of a capital expenditure to get that off the ground because you already have the hardware in store with security cameras, et cetera, or in a warehouse. and now, you could utilize that. The mindset as well that the store serves as a point of fulfillment to really shrink that last mile is also extending the opportunity where there's that network effect that's created. So you're not just relying on the warehouse being able to drop ship, you also have visibility to the inventory of every store, and really being able to create a system based on where the orders come from and where the customer lives and where they want to pick up, what's the closest location to get the package into that customer's hands. So it's definitely it's definitely like a pretty significant logistical plan that needs to take place. But those are the kinds of steps that people are using now, and I think breaking down the walls and thinking of silos, like this is just e-commerce and this is just in store, and understanding that it all has to work together is opening up the possibilities. There's always going to be the time where you can't fulfill an order. I mean, to say that's never going to happen is impossible. But I do think that in order to kind of damage control the disappointment, it's really being able to send that notification as soon as possible to that customer, like being able to identify ideally within that same day if it can't happen. I think some of the worst experiences I've personally had is when I've placed an order and I don't find out till at least a week later that they're not going to be able to fulfill it. That's highly disappointing to a customer because I've already assumed I've waited this long, it must be en route. It must be coming my way. So how did you take so long to figure that out? So communication's key with a customer. I think being timely is essential. And then, if you got, it's like that sandwich situation, like something good, something bad, something good, right? So you got them to place the order, you're going to disappoint on it, maybe give them a 15% off next time, do something that you're always conveying that you're in service of your customer and you're really, that's your top priority.
So, like, like you said, like, it might take up to a week for companies to fulfill, retailers to fulfill the order. But I was under the impression that, buy online, pick up in store. In a perfect world, I would expect that, buy online, pick up in store order should be like pretty, instantaneous. Like, customer places the order, associate gets the notification, they acknowledge that, hey, I'm working on it, package it, and then customer knows it, essentially trying to pick up the order within like few hours. Do you think we are still quite a bit away from, far off from that target, or is it like something we will need few years before most retailers have that SLA?
I mean, I think that it depends on the retailer. I mean, on average, that's definitely the goal of it, right? Same day pickup. That's what people expect. But there are times where, they might need to get it from somewhere else, and so it might communicate that it's going to take longer. But on average, I think that it's the same day is what the advantage that everybody's expecting. I think that it's in many ways in the best interest of the brands and retailers to be able to create that because in the end, it's going to actually be less expensive for them if they don't have to deal with shipping. If they can solve for order fulfillment by in store and decrease the amount of fulfillment that has to happen through mailing a package, right? The packaging of it, the freight cost, all of that, then ultimately that's going to be better for the brand and retailer. They're not all there, for sure. And it just depends, I guess, how popular or how specialized the item is, if that's always going to be something that's going to be in my nearby location or if I have to wait to get it to me.
Yeah, I definitely agree with you there, and I think a lot of retailers have a long way to go before they can actually deliver the BOPIS experience that maybe customers already have come to accept. I think customers have pretty high expectations at this point. But I'm curious to pivot a little bit, but kind of in the same vein. I'm curious if you have any predictions for the store of the future, as people are calling it, from a technological perspective or otherwise, and that can include BOPIS, but it's probably going to be more far-reaching than that.
Yeah, I mean, I think that there's, numerous elements that can create the store of the future. Some will be tech oriented and some not as much reliant on that, but I see the store of the future as something that's designed to be highly modular, something that can morph and evolve throughout the year depending on the needs. I think on average, holiday season needs, for example, in store are very different than maybe spring or other times. So from a design standpoint, I think it's being able to create environments that are truly agile. In the store, maybe over the holidays does flex to be centered a little bit more around fulfillment, and maybe at other times of the year, it's more around discovery and events and product launches and different sorts of experiences based more on discovery. I think that contactless payments is going to be more and more integrated. And I don't just mean self-checkout, I mean a little bit more of that Amazon Go experience too. I think, it's very much focused on like the grocery industry right now, but I see that extending as you're seeing consumers become more and more adept to that seamless opportunity of walking in. I think with that, there's an opportunity of deeper levels of personalization that can be integrated into the in-store experience because I'm going to have my shopping list on my phone. It's going to know that I've arrived. It should be able to tell me what aisles to go to, what deals are happening that day. You bought this last time. We now have this in stock. Um, we don't want to strip away the human elements of it, but I see a deeper integration of the capabilities that you see in a digital platform being integrated into the store, and then that better positioning the store associate to provide a different level of value add to my experience. It will strip away a lot of the transactional things that they had to do before, and now they can come in at a deeper human level. I think a perfect store has the kinds of associates that you see at Crutchfield. If you call Crutchfield and you want to figure out how to put together your smart home system, I mean, they know more than you're ever going to know, even if you've researched for days online. And that's the value add that the store ultimately should be able to provide to the consumers.
So that's interesting. So what you're saying is like, what we've been doing on e-com, the level of interaction and customer personalization we can offer because we know so much about customer, the way the products that they have browsed and the history and purchase history and all that. So essentially, Amazon Go or any of those retail stores that are going in that direction is like e-com, but it's like with a physical dimension to it. So you're walking into it's like we don't have to put in a VR lenses in front, but actually you can really see that whole physical thing and still be browsing your phone and still be having a buying experience can still be like a more of electronic digital self service self-paced. But then you have all those additional help from your phone because you are in this store and physically you can see the product, you like it. So I like that idea. Thanks. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's a balance, right? You can't strip away all of the human elements of the physical retail experience, or what's the point? And, when you go too far, that is what consumers think. I didn't come to a store just to touch a screen. I could do that at home. So it's about the merging of the two and having it be a symbiotic relationship that really unlocks like the true value add of each channel, right? And bringing it to the in-store environment.
Yeah, in fact, because the technology is taking away so much of reducing the friction, so the associate and the customer can have a much more valuable conversation. They don't have to do those chores like check out and scan the item and whatever. It's just kind of part of the whole thing. But the real conversations are happening around product, like you said, and how to use it, and what interesting stories about that product, and all those things.
Hmm. Exactly. Yeah.
What I like about what you said is that you said, stores have to be adaptive. And I think if this pandemic has taught us anything, it's that we need to adapt. And so you have been called a pop-up queen, and I think that title is definitely earned. So I was wondering if you could explain to our audience, firstly, just what pop-ups are, and then why you think they're effective for retailers that maybe don't have a strong brick and mortar presence in a particular city or state, and how they can help retailers out in that way.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, what's exciting is the use cases of pop-ups continue to expand. And so there's many scenarios where it's highly beneficial to the brand or to the consumer, really. What we've seen in 2020, right, is a relook at the value that the physical retail store delivers. And so, from multiple angles, one, I would say when it's a brand or retailer with a national footprint, what we saw is a lot of them relook at their capital allocation and start reanalyzing, okay, in what cities does it make sense for me to have this flagship destination 12 months a year, and where is it not performing as well? Those cities where they shut down doesn't necessarily mean that those aren't important locations to them. It's just probably not justified 12 months a year. So now they can take an approach utilizing a pop-up format and saying, okay, when we have a product launch, or maybe we have a business that's highly seasonal, we need to be present for back to school or for summer, or whatever it is, that becomes an avenue for them to be able to show up when it's most relevant and to be able to touch upon that like time sensitivity. We're here now for a limited time, come interact with us. And so that's one aspect of it. For a lot of the digital native brands that are going into brick and mortar, there was hesitation before to sign a long-term lease. There's going to be even more now because there's so much to think through. How did physical transform? How is the customer going to return? What are those expectations going to look like? So as they're testing the viability of new markets, pop-ups serve as a great way to test that, right? It's a shorter term commitment for you to be there and to be able to get those learnings. I also think what's exciting from a technology standpoint is not only are we seeing more integration of technology in store, we're seeing more flexible models that are being out in the market where there's more short-term opportunities for brands to integrate this technology into store without having to sign multi-year leases. And so with that technology in the store, you're also opening up opportunities for data collection that you didn't have before. And so when you think of the attribution of physical, there'll be a bigger appetite and more confidence that we can focus on highly experiential. We can approach this as like experience per square foot because we're going to have this technology in store that's going to enable me to track the attribution of the in-store visits to the overall lifetime value of a customer. Did I see increases in website traffic in a zip code radius? Did I see the average order value change? Did I see returns lessen from this new hybrid shopper? Did I see them return back to my website more frequently? And so being able to track all of that opens up the opportunities. How do we approach a retail space in a pop-up to be highly experiential, to be about more about the value proposition, the lifestyle message, events that will come back again, and other elements because we understand the possibilities of the halo effect. So those are three ways where I think it's a really exciting time, and it will be for pop-up retail.
So pop-up retail, while definitely it helps in getting all those marketing out and giving that, media impact of the store in marketing. Also, what I heard you said is that, it helps in getting the sense of market when you are doing new product launches. So you're saying that in that case it's the merchandisers, the merchants should also be interested in pop-up stores because that gives them an opportunity to show their next season collection or the new things that they are introducing. So so that they get a good sense. Right now the problem that merchants are having is that they cannot do all those they cannot visit those many, they cannot do showroom, they cannot bring in the B2B vendors in their stores to get the feel for what is going to sell, what is not going to sell. So I see that pop-up stores, actually what you're saying is like pop-up stores are a good way of merchants to show off their new collection and get the sense of market, right? So that way they are much better prepared to order and not order too much. And then send all that inventory for landfill.
For sure. Yeah, for sure. I mean, I always have said that I think pop-ups serve as a really powerful focus group because people enter those locations with a different mentality than a permanent store. In their mind, they're inherently like, what am I going to discover today? Because this is here for a limited time. It's different. Maybe it was a brand I've been coveting online. They're in person now. They've never experienced the 3D manifestation of that. And so there's an element of that. And so they're also more open to sharing their thoughts about it with the salesperson on their social media channels. And you've seen, partnerships years ago when Sarah Jessica Parker first announced her shoe collection, and she did it in collaboration. I forget which department store now, what it was, but those pop-ups gave them insights. Okay, well, where are we going to place our buys, right? Because there was an introduction for a short term. Here's the full shoe collection. But if they think about what are they going to put into mass distribution, what are they going to put throughout all of their stores, now they had some insights of these are the SKUs that everybody was gravitating to, and here are those that really weren't moving much.
I think something that's interesting is that a lot of retailers right now are thinking, what should a store look like after this pandemic? Should I even have stores? Should I just have a collection of pop ups once in a while in different cities and have that be the brand experience? Because obviously it is a tough time for retailers all around. And when they do think about their stores, they're thinking, well, how do I need to redesign my store so that it's not just the same old that everybody's doing, and maybe I make it into a distribution center, or maybe I make it into a showroom only where you can't even purchase at the store. So I'm just curious if you have any tips for retailers, because that's a hard road to go down, redesigning all of your stores, and definitely hard to do if you're doing it from scratch and if you're really used to doing it in a particular way. So if you have any tips for retailers in terms of what they should think about when they're starting to redesign their store concepts and their store formats.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's no cookie cutter answer because it really every brand and every, your target customer, they vary and their needs vary. I use as a guiding light when I think of the stores, what can we deliver in store that we can't in any of our other channels? Like, because that's the unique element that you're bringing to the in-store environment. So I do think that the shoppable showroom format, it was getting attention before. There was a lot of hesitancy around it because you weren't going to capture that impulse purchase for those that want to walk out the door. But I think from coming out of COVID, we could see more confidence that the consumer is more familiar now with that concept, right? Because they haven't been visiting stores as much and they understand the drop ship model. And so if you are going to be able to deliver a product within, say, 48 hours, a consumer, it's not like so time sensitive. I need to have it in my hand and walk out the door now. And then if you especially think of the male shopper versus the female shopper, I think for a female shopper, we tend to want that physical gratification of walking out with the bag. But a male shopper, unless it's time sensitive, on average, he's okay with it because his value add is, did it fit me? And then if it did, how many colors does it come in, right? And like you've solved a problem. So you have to really think about your consumer first. And with the shoe industry, for example, with footwear, I would say that that's one where we've seen a lot of success where they've utilized pop-up or permanent stores in general to be more of a fit shop because that is the biggest gap when you think about footwear, right? It's having the confidence that if I've never shopped this brand before, how's the arch going to be? Do I need wide or narrow, or does this run small or large? And there's a lot of technology online out there, but fit I think still has a ways to go when it comes from the online technology side. So that's one where we've seen a lot of success when I have confidence now of how the heel fits, how the sneaker fits, how the flat fits. That that showroom experience has provided a significant value add to me to the consumer. And on average, we've seen clients who've done that. And we've worked with Jamie, Margot, Sarah Flint, number of brands. They've seen a higher AOV from those customers online once they've had that physical store experience because they've gained that confidence now that they understand fit. So I think it just really depends on what your product is and what's the question you're solving to answer.
Yeah, that's great. I love what you said about showrooming. I think that's definitely a possibility for the future, and I'm a big fan of pop-ups as well. So it's been so great having you on and kind of having this conversation about what, from a technology perspective, is really needed in store, and just getting some insight into some of the conversations that you're having with some of your clients and with retailers in general about ways that they can really level up in their in-store experiences and put the customer at the center of their shopping journey, which I think is what all of us are talking about and all of us want to achieve. But as we kind of wrap up here, as is tradition on the podcast, our audience would love to know kind of what's going on with you and what they can look forward to from you and how they can keep up with you in the future.
Sure, yeah, you can always follow on socials. I'm very active on LinkedIn, personally, Melissa Gonzalez, but also you can follow Lionesque Group, LinkedIn and Instagram. And we have a handful of pop-ups. We can't say who they are yet, that are um, underway to open various cities on the Northeast. So that's exciting. We have a revolving storefront that we launched in July called Periodic in Seattle. So that is it is a pop-up, but the address is permanent, and every 1 to 2 months a new brand is popping up inside of it. So we just had Cuts Clothing. They just broke down yesterday. We have a Pacific Northwest brand called Rustic. We have something really exciting for Mother's Day popping up there. So that's been a great one. And that one's also been a great example to show that when you right product, right time, right place, people want to shop still. We launched a electric bike company, Van Moof, last summer. It's appointment-based shopping. July was pretty much, in the thick of the pandemic, and they made sales day one because it resonated, right? It was environmentally friendly. It was about outdoor lifestyle, and so we did a plant pop-up in January, and biophilia is, really resonating with people right now as they think of their home life and having, green and having that energy. Wildly successful. It was appointment-based shopping, 3 weeks long. We sold out of every time slot in 36 hours. So the message is that people still want great experiences, and different categories are going to go in and out of favor, as we see the world transition. But it's about providing that value add to them in that in-store experience, because people are craving that. People are still craving to have an experience outside of their home. So the more that you can deliver that to them, the more willing, the more excited they're going to be to come check it out.
I love that slogan. People still care about experiences. I think that's a great way to wrap up. And we definitely encourage our audience to follow you on social and to keep their eye out for the pop-ups coming in their area, because they definitely are a great experience, and it's a great way to have a conversation with a brand and really get to know them for the first time, and get into it in a way that you can't online. So thank you so much for joining us. It's been such a pleasure having you on.
Thank you so much for having me. It was great speaking to you guys.
Thanks.
That's it for this episode of the Customer Centric Retailing Podcast, featuring our special guest, Melissa Gonzalez. Melissa works with some of the most well-known retailers in the world to elevate their customer experience, and she's confident that the way forward involves some growing pains. It's important for retailers to keep testing, keep iterating, and keep checking in with their customer to create an experience that works for them. If you like what you heard, you can subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and Google Podcasts. Please rate and review and recommend to a friend or fellow retail fanatic. This podcast is brought to you by Hot Wax Commerce.